Hey people, get ready to crush everyday TOEFL iBT tests for all modules and make your dreams come true. I'm your motivator and I'll be guiding you through the test prep videos. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe or you'll be missing out on some serious preparation.
Is it more important to enjoy your job or earn a high salary? Explain. Begin speaking now.
I think it is more important to enjoy your job. If you enjoy your job, you will be happy every day. Money is good, but if you don't like your work, you will feel very bad. For example, my uncle has a high salary job, but he is always tired and stressed. He doesn't like his work, so he is not happy. But my friend works in a job she loves and she is very happy. I think happy is more important than money. When you enjoy work, you do better work too. So I believe enjoying your job is more important than high salary.
In my opinion, enjoying your job is more important than earning a high salary. First, when people enjoy their work, they feel motivated and productive every day. A person who loves their job will put in more effort and achieve greater results over time. For example, teachers often do not earn very high salaries, but many feel deeply satisfied because they are helping students learn and grow. On the other hand, someone with a high-paying job they dislike may experience stress and burnout. Additionally, research shows that job satisfaction contributes significantly to overall happiness in life. Therefore, I strongly believe that finding work you are passionate about leads to a more fulfilling life than simply chasing a high salary.
From my perspective, job satisfaction far outweighs financial compensation as a measure of career success. When individuals are genuinely passionate about their work, they naturally invest greater energy, creativity, and dedication, which ultimately leads to professional excellence and, in many cases, financial reward as well. Consider entrepreneurs who pursue their interests relentlessly. Their enthusiasm drives innovation and, eventually, substantial income. Conversely, individuals trapped in high-paying but unfulfilling roles frequently suffer from chronic stress, diminished mental health, and a pervasive sense of purposelessness. Research in occupational psychology consistently demonstrates that intrinsic motivation is a far stronger predictor of long-term well-being than extrinsic rewards like salary. Furthermore, a career aligned with one's values fosters resilience during difficult periods. Consequently, I firmly believe that professional fulfillment is the true cornerstone of a meaningful and productive life.
Beginning this fall semester, Riverside University will require all incoming freshmen to purchase a university-approved laptop through the new Campus Technology program. Each student will receive a standardized device preloaded with essential academic software, including word processing, research, and online collaboration tools. The program is designed to ensure equal access to technology and to prepare all students for the demands of modern university coursework. Laptops will be available for purchase through the university bookstore at a discounted rate of $650, with installment financing available for eligible students. Students who already own a personal laptop may submit a waiver application by demonstrating their device meets the minimum technical specifications listed on the university website. Two students, Maria and David, discuss the announcement outside the registrar's office. Maria expresses a clear and detailed opinion about the required laptop program. Maria strongly supports the required laptop program, arguing that a standardized device will eliminate the technical compatibility issues that frequently disrupt group projects and online exams. She also contends that the discounted price and financing options make the program financially accessible to most students, and that having pre-installed academic software will save incoming freshmen significant time and confusion as they begin their studies. The student expresses an opinion about the university's required laptop program. State her opinion and explain the reasons she gives for holding that opinion. Begin speaking now.
The reading says the university will require all freshmen to buy a specific laptop. The woman in the conversation thinks this is a good idea. She says the program is good because all students will have the same kind of computer, so there are no problems in group work or exams. She also thinks the price is okay because the university gives a discount and students can pay little by little. She also says that the software already on the laptop will help new students save time. So the woman agrees with the announcement and thinks it will be helpful for students.
According to the reading, Riverside University will require all incoming freshmen to purchase a standardized laptop through the campus technology program. The woman in the conversation strongly supports this policy. First, she points out that having the same device will eliminate technical compatibility issues during group projects and exams, making collaboration much smoother for everyone. Second, she argues that the $650 discounted price, combined with available financing options, makes the program financially accessible for most students. Finally, she mentions that the pre-installed academic software will be especially helpful for freshmen who are not yet familiar with the tools required for university coursework. Overall, the woman believes this program will significantly improve the academic experience for new students.
The university announcement outlines a new policy requiring all incoming freshmen to purchase a standardized laptop through the campus technology program. The woman in the conversation wholeheartedly endorses this initiative, offering several well-reasoned arguments in its favor. To begin with, she emphasizes that having a uniform device across the student body will virtually eliminate the technical incompatibilities that frequently disrupt collaborative projects and standardized assessments, thereby fostering a more equitable academic environment. Furthermore, she contends that the university negotiated discount and flexible financing arrangements adequately address potential financial concerns, ensuring the program does not disproportionately burden students from lower-income backgrounds. She also highlights the significant advantage of pre-installed academic software, which will allow freshmen to transition seamlessly into university-level coursework without the confusion of independently sourcing and configuring essential tools. Taken together, these reasons lead her to conclude that the program represents a thoughtful and beneficial investment in student success.
The carbon cycle is a fundamental biogeochemical process by which carbon atoms continuously travel from the atmosphere into organisms and back into the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is absorbed by plants during photosynthesis and converted into organic matter. When organisms respire, decompose, or are burned, carbon is released back into the atmosphere. Oceans also serve as major carbon reservoirs, absorbing atmospheric CO2. Human activities, particularly the burning of fossil fuels and deforestation, have significantly accelerated carbon release, disrupting the natural balance of the cycle and contributing to elevated atmospheric CO2 levels and global climate change. A professor in an environmental science course discusses the carbon cycle, using the Amazon rainforest as a concrete example. She explains how the Amazon's trees absorb massive quantities of CO2 through photosynthesis, locking carbon in biomass for decades. She then describes how large-scale deforestation in the Amazon releases stored carbon back into the atmosphere almost instantly through burning and decomposition, effectively turning a carbon sink into a carbon source. She emphasizes that this disruption illustrates exactly how human interference breaks the natural equilibrium described in the textbook. The professor uses the Amazon rainforest to illustrate the carbon cycle, explaining that its trees act as powerful carbon sinks by absorbing CO2 during photosynthesis. She notes that deforestation and burning of the Amazon rapidly releases that stored carbon back into the atmosphere, converting the forest from a carbon sink to a carbon source. This example demonstrates how human activity disrupts the natural carbon cycle balance. Using the example from the lecture, explain the concept of the carbon cycle as described in the reading. Begin speaking now.
The carbon cycle is about how carbon moves between the atmosphere and living things. The reading says plants take in CO2 and when they die or burn, carbon goes back to the air. The professor talked about the Amazon rainforest. She said trees there absorb a lot of CO2. But when people cut down and burn those trees, the carbon is released. So deforestation is a problem for the carbon cycle. That is the connection between the reading and the lecture.
According to the reading, the carbon cycle is the continuous process by which carbon moves between the atmosphere and living organisms. Plants absorb CO2 through photosynthesis, and carbon is returned to the atmosphere through respiration, decomposition, and burning. The professor illustrated this with the Amazon rainforest. She explained that Amazon trees store enormous amounts of carbon in their biomass, functioning as carbon sinks. However, when large areas are deforested and burned, that stored carbon is rapidly released back into the atmosphere. This turns the rainforest from a carbon sink into a carbon source, which the professor said perfectly demonstrates how human activity disrupts the natural equilibrium described in the reading.
The reading defines the carbon cycle as the biogeochemical process through which carbon atoms continuously cycle between the atmosphere, living organisms, and reservoirs such as oceans. Plants absorb atmospheric CO2 via photosynthesis, storing it as organic matter, while respiration, decomposition, and combustion return carbon to the atmosphere. The professor brought this abstract cycle to life using the Amazon rainforest as a specific example. She explained that the Amazon's vast tree cover functions as a massive carbon sink, locking away carbon in biomass for extended periods, precisely the absorption phase the reading describes. However, she pointed out that large-scale deforestation, followed by burning, releases that accumulated carbon almost instantaneously, transforming the forest into a net carbon source. This directly illustrates the reading's point that human activities accelerate carbon release and destabilize the natural balance of the cycle, making the Amazon an especially compelling real-world case of anthropogenic disruption to this essential environmental process.
A philosophy professor delivers a lecture on the Socratic method, the philosophical technique attributed to the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates. She opens by explaining that the Socratic method is a form of cooperative argumentative dialogue in which a questioner, originally Socrates himself, asks a series of probing questions designed not to impart information, but to expose contradictions and stimulate critical thinking in the respondent. She identifies two main points. First, she describes the process of elenchus, or cross-examination, in which Socrates would ask someone to define a concept such as justice or courage, then systematically question their assumptions until the person recognized the inadequacy of their original definition. She uses the example from Plato's dialogue Meno, where Socrates questions Meno's definition of virtue until Meno admits he no longer knows what virtue is, a state Socrates calls aporia, or productive confusion. Second, the professor explains the concept of meiotics, which Socrates compared to the work of a midwife. Just as a midwife helps a mother give birth, Socrates believed his questioning helped individuals give birth to knowledge already latent within them. She illustrates this with the famous example from the Meno dialogue where Socrates guides an uneducated slave boy to independently arrive at a geometric truth about doubling the area of a square, using only questions, never direct instruction. The professor explains that the Socratic method uses probing questions to expose contradictions and develop critical thinking rather than to transmit information directly. She covers two key concepts. First, elenchus, or cross-examination, illustrated by Socrates dismantling Meno's definition of virtue until Meno reaches aporia, a state of productive confusion. Second, she describes meutics, the idea that questioning helps individuals discover knowledge already within them, exemplified by Socrates guiding an uneducated slave boy to solve a geometry problem purely through questions. Using points and examples from the lecture, explain the Socratic method. Begin speaking now.
The Socratic method is a way of teaching using questions. The professor said Socrates asked people many questions to make them think. One example is when Socrates asked Meno about virtue. Meno thought he knew what virtue was, but Socrates asked more questions and Meno got confused. The professor also said Socrates helped people find knowledge inside themselves. He did this with a boy and a geometry problem. He only asked questions and the boy got the answer. So the Socratic method is about learning through questions, not just being told the answer.
According to the lecture, the Socratic method is a form of dialogue in which a series of probing questions are used to expose contradictions and encourage critical thinking, rather than simply providing information. The professor explained two main ideas. The first is elenchus, or cross-examination. She used the example of Socrates questioning Meno's definition of virtue, systematically challenging his assumptions until Meno admitted he no longer knew what virtue was. The professor called this state aporia, or productive confusion. The second concept is meutics, which Socrates compared to midwifery, the idea that questioning helps people discover knowledge already within themselves. The professor illustrated this with the slave boy in the Meno dialogue, whom Socrates guided to solve a geometry problem using only questions, never direct instruction.
The professor's lecture presents the Socratic method as a mode of cooperative philosophical inquiry in which a skilled questioner employs systematic, probing dialogue not to transmit knowledge, but to expose internal contradictions and cultivate independent critical reasoning in the respondent. She organized her explanation around two interconnected concepts. The first is elenchus, cross-examination. Socrates would invite someone to define an abstract concept, then methodically interrogate the assumptions underlying their definition. The professor illustrated this with the Meno dialogue. When Meno confidently offers a definition of virtue, Socrates' relentless questioning dismantles it, leaving Meno in a state of aporia, a Greek term the professor described as productive confusion, in which the respondent recognizes the limits of their prior understanding, which is itself the beginning of genuine philosophical inquiry. The second concept is meutics, which Socrates metaphorically compared to midwifery. Rather than inserting knowledge from outside, Socrates believed his questions helped individuals give birth to understanding already latent within them. The professor's most striking example here is the uneducated slave boy in Meno whom Socrates guides, using exclusively questions, to independently derive a geometric truth about doubling the area of a square. This example powerfully demonstrates the method's core premise, that knowledge is not passively received but actively uncovered through structured, disciplined questioning.
Hey people, how was your test? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or you'll be missing out on some serious fun. See you tomorrow!